Thanks very much, Ms. Rossman. We'll do a round of questions here from the senators in attendance. And let me start. I'm not going to question your backgrounds and experience. They are extensive and impressive. There's no point in repeating for the record what has been already said about what you have done with your lives and the time that you spent in professional service to the cause of justice. I'm going to ask a more general softball type question just to ask you to reflect for a moment. At any moment in American history, if we had this hearing, we could certainly say we still face challenges in the United States when it comes to justice based on race, gender, poverty, religious belief, ethnic background. It still is a problem that haunts us. You've seen that in real time in your practice of law. Would you comment on the present state of the national debate on this issue of justice, Ms. Lee?
Thank you, Chairman. I think one of the critical issues relating to justice, one of the critical concerns is the idea of equal access to justice, equal access to competent counsel in particular. One of the reasons that in my background and my experience, I've participated in a lot of training programs with other attorneys is the idea that not only is it important that people have access to counsel, but that the counsel that they have be competent and able to vigorously argue their positions. Part of the calculus of justice is one important part is, of course, a fair and neutral decision maker, but also parties to vigorously pursue the claims. And so I think between the issues of access to the courts, representation, fair decision makers, all of those are necessary to achieving justice because the process is the thing that we have. We can't guarantee outcomes. We can't rely on assumptions about what's going to happen. We have to have a fair and equitable process. And so with those in place, with that kind of process, there can be a measure of justice regardless of the outcome. And so I think that, again, the question of access is something I think that's really important to address in our current system.
Thank you. Ms. Rossman?
Thank you. I would echo what Ms. Lee just said and simply add that in my role as an appellate federal public defender, one thing that I have witnessed that has really stayed with me is the importance of appellate courts in the lives of ordinary people. People come to the appellate courts wanting to be heard, wanting for the judges to be impartial, neutral, receptive in the sense of not an outcome determinative way in every case, but knowing they're going to get a fair hearing before the court. And I see that in the 10th Circuit with judges who are open-minded and receptive. And I think that is very significant to ordinary Americans in terms of how people understand the judiciary, that they will get a fair day in court with impartial, neutral decision makers.
Ms. Rossman, let me be specific on one area. I noticed that you've devoted a significant portion of last year raising the alarm about the spread of COVID-19 among our federal prison inmates. Senator Grassley and I have joined in asking of the head of the Bureau of Prisons a year ago what plans were being made for this looming pandemic and crisis. And we were told at the time not to worry, things were under control. There were only 3 cases when it came to inmates and 3 cases when it came to staff. Well, we know what happened afterwards, unfortunately. Many hundreds died in our prisons. The rate of infection was 6 times what it was with the general population. And we still have genuine concerns and issues such as compassionate release being debated. Tell us a little bit about your background with this issue.
Thank you. The First Step Act, which this body has passed, is incredibly significant legislation. My work specifically in the last year has focused on the so-called compassionate release portion of the act, which amended the statute that allowed that previously only allowed the director of the Bureau of Prisons to seek compassionate release for inmates, and changed the law in a way to allow inmates, if they exhausted their claims appropriately, to pursue relief directly with the court. That change was significant, and what we saw during the pandemic is a true crisis with individuals who were experiencing COVID within the prison system. All actors, in my view, were doing their very best under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. But the availability of relief for eligible individuals, certainly not for everyone, but for our eligible clients, was an incredibly important avenue to pursue.
Thank you. Senator Grassley.